PC fans are eating good.
The multiverse comes to gaming. We'll talk. Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared at PlayStation Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, as always, your other host, Mr.
Saul Bridges, bringing you guys lucky episode 176.
That is correct. If you are new to the show, stick around to the end where you can find out where you can find us on social media to be part of things like the Community's Take, which we'll be getting into here in a little bit, as well as just finding things that we post and where you can find, listen, watch, whatever it is that you want to do to the show. But starting this thing off right, Saul, have you played anything this week?
Yeah, I played a little bit of Destiny 2, not too much, like Friday and Saturday night. I think like Thursday or Wednesday or something like that. And I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima. I've gotten to the part now like where
Which act are you in?
I'll be kind of vague. I'm still in Act 1.
Okay.
But I did all of Sensei Ishikawa's stuff that I could do, I think. Like I swear it said 4 out of 9, but now he's not on my map.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did that. I've done up to that, and I'm doing Strawman stuff, which is pretty cool. And I'm still kind of taking that game at a very slow pace. I said it last week, but I think like I'm kind of devolving into a patient gamer in a sense of like, I feel like there's no need for me to like prove myself to anybody or like be in a rush to beat games as they come out. So I'm just starting to take my time with stuff. And I was thinking about this today actually. Like I was like, I'm gonna play some Ghost, and as I was playing it, Ghost is weird because I'm really enjoying it, but it's not a game that I'm motivated to play.
I think that may change for you once you get in Act 2.
Okay. Me and Brennan were actually talking about that. He's not even as far as I am. And he's just like, he told me, he's like, I love the game when I'm playing it, but I never feel like playing it. He's like, when I play it though, it's like, yeah, this is good. And that's kind of how I am. It's like, I guess I'll play Ghost now. It's not something, typically when I'm enamored with a game, I'll wake up, and then let's say if it's my weekend off, I'll like wake up and I'll be like, I'm gonna go play that.
Yeah.
But Ghost doesn't really pull me that way, but it pulls me while I'm playing, which I guess is all that matters.
Well, think about like with The Forest, right? When we were playing it, and you remember I was already playing Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah. And
The Forest, because of how quickly it's able to pull you in and get you to that point of like, I just want to play to see what else is going to happen.
Yeah.
Tsushima, as much as I was the same way, I'd like, oh, this is really good. Then I'd quit playing it, and then I would get this urge to, I'm going to play The Forest. And if you notice, I mean, normally I beat new games fairly quickly, not because I feel like I owe it to anybody, and I'm not, not that you were saying that, but
yeah,
everybody plays for their own reasons. And I do think some people play even quicker to feel like they're on top of, the zeitgeist of the moment of like, hey, it can't be ruined for me because I've already done it. And there is some benefit to that in gaming.
There is.
But there's also a lot of bad things about that because you don't give yourself enough room to kind of really take it in the experience sometimes.
I actually thought about that. Like, I got The Last of Us spoiled for me. Not knowing I got God of War spoiled for me. Like, I saw the final, like, I was scrolling through YouTube. And
I remember.
I saw the final, one of the final bosses in a thumbnail, and I'm like, what is that I'm looking at? Nope, scroll past, keep on scrolling. And I tried to forget it, and obviously it didn't. But at the same time, it's like, that was kind of something that I very quickly glanced at and then rolled past. But it's one of those things that's, the further you get away, the more it's now become common in culture to put just spoilers everywhere. And
it's weird because like God of War, I remember, and I know I've said it on the show before, but even outside of that, right? If you didn't play that game in the first week or two, realistically, first week, it was really, really hard to live life and not see a screenshot that gave away what I think is one of the absolutely most powerful moments of the whole game.
I didn't have that spoiled for me, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I couldn't believe it. The first time I saw someone share a screenshot of it, I said, why would you do that?
Did you get that spoiled for you?
No, thankfully. I got it. I saw it in a screenshot about an hour worth of gameplay after I had gotten it.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I can't believe that almost got ruined for me.
And what kills me is that like on YouTube, this is within 1 week of it coming out, but on YouTube, and I don't have, I don't watch a whole lot of gaming stuff on YouTube at all. Like I kind of stick to either podcast, hobby style videos, stuff like that. Like it's very rare for me to watch a gamer.
So like your recommendations, it was very odd that it even showed up.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's very kind of and I think it only showed up for me for that because I was showing Annie a trailer, and then that put me into my recommendations.
Yep.
But I get like a lot of music stuff, so I don't get a lot of gaming stuff in there. But I do remember around that same time, within a week of it coming out, it was a video like Twitch streamers reacting to, and then the spoiler we're talking about, and I'm like, you not only have it in your thumbnail as a very, very easy to see spoiler, but then you have the exact title of what they're spoiling in the title of the video.
Oh, it's amazing.
And it's like within that first week. And so I don't know like why that's
the
a
big
thing.
crux of The Last of Us. There's that what is it? Gamer Reacts, something like that. It's a channel.
Gamer Ranks?
It's not Gamer Ranks. It's like Gamers React or Gamer Reacts.
Yeah.
Something. And I was scrolling through the other day, and again, it's crazy. If you watch one gaming thing on YouTube, the algorithm's like, you want to see 80 million gaming things? Okay.
Dude, it's hyperactive. It's bad.
Well, it's like that on anything, though. It's like you watched a video of a cat, we're going to give you 30 videos of a cat and see if you click on any of them. And then after about 3 days, if you've not clicked on any of them, we'll go back to what you had.
No, when that happens to me and it becomes hyperactive in my feed, I just go through and hit don't recommend channel or not interested. I wish YouTube had a block. Like I am sick of seeing, like, honestly, if I go to trending, there's 1% of the time there's something in trending I want to see over a month. Over the entirety of a month, there is 1% of each day there's something I may be interested in. Other than that, it's just music videos, kids crap, and all kinds of stuff I don't care about. I wish I could tailor the trending for me. And I can go through every day and block all these creators out I don't care about, or hit do not recommend channel, and then eventually I'll tailor through an algorithm, I'll tailor my feed for me.
Yeah,
because it'll only show me stuff.
I think there should be two. What are they? Trending things. I think you should have trending for what it thinks you would actually like, and then I think it should have trending for what's biggest on YouTube. And that way, if you just want to completely hide the trending on YouTube tab, you can do so while still getting something that's actually catered for you. Yeah,
well, I mean, and what's really bad about YouTube now is, and I think it's because Google Play is coming to an end by the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
But if you at any given point in time watch music or music videos on YouTube, which I do, if I go to this, there will be I guarantee I'll see it here within just a couple of seconds of scrolling. There will be a playlist of music, and I can't, like right here, and I can hit. Nope, not play. But I can hit not interested, but it will still be there again. Like if I refresh this feed, it'll still be here. I hate it, and I think that's because of what's going on with YouTube and music stuff starting.
Yeah.
But back on the topic.
Yeah, going back to that, the Gamer Reacts thing had, and I looked at the date of the video, and it was pretty close considering the game's not that old, of, the big pivotal starting scene of The Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
And again, that's my first thought was it too. I think it's, looking at it from a more traditional spec where I don't like being spoiled, I think that there really is a group out there that doesn't mind being spoiled at all and lives under this thing of being spoiled gives them that much more drive to potentially play the game themselves. So I don't really get it.
Me and Seth had a conversation about this because he has a buddy, and to me, I think that if you're spoiled, there's parts of that are ruined, but that you can still find hope in, or you can still redeem those parts or whatever. So like, it's a crappy feeling to be spoiled, and you could then now feel no motivation to play it or anything like that. But I feel like that even in the gameplay, it's possible that you can get some of that feeling back.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I feel like spoilers for media I don't care about, that I wasn't going to care about in the first place, like Star Wars. By the third Star Wars movie, when I found out you can literally go through and read all the leaks online, I was like, let me go ahead and do this. Because it's like, at that point, I did not care about Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, sure.
So I went ahead and went through and read through them. But at the same time, like, I still like the movie. Seth's friend is like, I can go through and read all the spoilers and not ever watch it and still be able to fully contextualize everything in a conversation. I'm like, that's not always the case.
Yeah.
It is with like very shallow media or like very straight to the point. Like, I knew about the How I Met Your Mother ending before Seth did. And I didn't tell him that, but I just remember thinking, like, that's like, even as a fan, or not a fan of that show, but seeing other fans freak out about this ending, I can see that it's not the best ending that people wanted. And
yeah, it's very divisive.
Yeah, but that's a very shallow thing. I don't have to have context of the 8 seasons or whatever, X amount of seasons prior to that to understand that's not a good move.
Sure. Yeah.
But you can't do that with everything. back on though to what I was saying with Ghost is that when I woke up this morning, I didn't have any motivation to play it, but I played it anyways. I've decided I was gonna not buy Mortal Shell till I got done with Ghost because I didn't want something to distract me from Ghost, but I realized I'm not enamored with Ghost for something to even distract me like that.
Yeah,
I think that Ghost I will be playing at its own pace on and off. So Mortal Shell should be fine. Like even if I take 30 hours to play Mortal Shell or however long it takes to beat it, I could go back to Ghost and be like, oh yeah, it's very digestible for what I'm in right now in the story.
Yeah. I think your big moment that will start pulling you into being like, what does happen next? Like I said, I think all that crux happens when you move into chapter or move into Act 2.
I have a theory about what's going to happen and what moves you into Chapter 2.
I would be interested to hear it, but we'll do that off show.
Yeah. So let me just ask you this: how long until I hit Act 2?
I don't think you're that far. You said you're doing the Strawman stuff. Do you mean the Straw Hat?
Straw Hat, yeah. I don't know
You're not too far, depending on the order in which you've done it. Actually, really, it's up to you on how you do it. But yeah, you're not far.
I've done like 2 storylines of Adachi's.
Yeah,
and that's all of hers.
And you don't even have to do those. Those are just they're what I like. It's side content that you can go do, but the game only forces you to meet up with her just because of her role in the story.
Is it the same for Ishikawa?
Yeah,
because the Straw Hats are required, aren't they? Because they're gold.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it says Jin's tail, and then it will say side tail or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Never mind. My theory might not be accurate then. But what have you been playing?
Well, you mentioned Mortal Shell.
Yeah.
So what I actually did, I've been on vacation all week, which I know I didn't tell you was happening.
Yeah. Andrew, like on Tuesday, was like, I haven't seen Brett. Is he on vacation? I'm like, no, he's probably on calls or on trips. I'm like, he didn't tell me he was taking a vacation. He normally does.
Nope, I was on vacation.
Is it one of those spur of the moment Sunday night things like, I'm just going to text my boss?
No. Friday at work when I got to work, I've been thinking about it for a few weeks of like, when's a good time to do it? And I made sure with everybody else that no one else was going to be off. And then I was kind of like, as long as it's, and that it wouldn't affect anybody too crazy.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, yeah, everybody's good. I'm going to go ahead and take a week while I have a pretty decent window between my customers and what I need to do with them. So that's how I kind of took it. And I spent all Friday setting everything up to where even without me there, I could do a minimal email check from home and be fine. Which is kind of crap because I'm checking my email and communicating with customers while I'm on vacation. I should be paid for that time, but
yeah,
too hard of an argument to make.
Something I love about this new job is that it's not retail. If I want to take a vacation during the week of Christmas or like Thanksgiving, they don't care.
Yep, not at all.
It's kind of like, okay, well, take your vacation. So I think this year I'm going to pull what Andrew did last year, and I think for the week of since those are short weeks, especially on Thanksgiving week, because we're going to get Thursday and Friday off. It's a 3-day week. I'm going to take Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off.
Yeah.
And then on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day falls on Friday.
Yep.
Last year we got Christmas Eve and Christmas off. It's another 3-day work week. I may just take 6 days and then put them on those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And have the whole week off that way. And then I could either buy back my vacation time or just take like a Monday, Friday off every now and then, or just take a week off, like just a random week. Like,
it's kind of nice.
It's gonna be extra cold that week. I'm gonna use that as an excuse to take off or something. I don't know.
But anyway, so with that, I ended up downloading a couple of things and trying out a couple of things. Something that interested me because I've not played the genre since I was young. But I used to love Brick Breakers whenever I was younger.
Yeah.
So I decided to give Colin's game, the Twin Breaker that he did, I decided to give it a try, and I really like it, actually. It's fun, but it's also really challenging because of the few things that I personally have never seen in a Brick Breaker, plus having a story that was actually mildly interesting, and just enough to kind of pull you along. So that was an interesting experience, and I beat it and was kind of working through potentially platinuming it, but it's kind of challenging because one of the big major mechanic, and I think why it's called Twin Breaker, is like you control 2 different sticks from the beginning of the game. You control 2 different, bars with each analog stick, and the screen's kind of split in half, and you can only have so much coverage. But then halfway into the game, it does the same thing on the sides, so that the left analog stick controls this side one and the bottom one, and you have to move up and down and sometimes bring them together at like an apex. And then the other side's like that as well. And that, I kept thinking it was going to click with me, and it did a little bit more, enough for me to beat the game. But it was really challenging to me. And that's where I'm at right now on getting at least an A rank on every level to get a trophy for platinum. And I'm not sure I can do it.
Is Rezo good at Brick Breaker?
I don't think I'd consider Resogun. I think it's just a shmup.
I guess so,
But
yeah.
I don't know. That's a really good question. I doubt it is, because really a brick breaker is like having a ball that bounces around and continue going. There's
just
a lot
know
of
how
interesting power ups in this game too that I really liked.
I know how much Colin loved Resogun. So it's one of those things that, like, I wonder.
Well, he has I think he bought out 100% interest shares of Lilymo, the game's the guy who made the game. So he clearly has interest in making more games.
Good.
We will see more, but I think as just a first game, it was really cool and it has a lot of good stuff going for it. But from there, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I tried the Tony Hawk Pro Skater demo because as I started watching people play it, I had this feeling where, as much as I loved the game as a kid and I've played it a few times, I had a feeling that I really didn't know if the game was going to pull for me that much outside of 100% nostalgia. And so I decided to play it, and at least that first thing, I think Skate has ruined Tony Hawk for me.
I can separate those. So
it's hard for me.
I can do it pretty easily, but because you had to pre-order the game to download it.
I didn't, thankfully, but I game share with somebody at the moment, and that worked out.
So like what I'm gonna do is that since and this is my thought all along, is that since you don't download the game, you only download the demo.
You can refund.
I'm gonna refund it just to play the demo. And the demo was really good. Like, it was one of those things that, like, I haven't played a Tony Hawk game since the GameCube days or PS2 games days, but I literally can do everything like I used to be able to.
Yeah.
I knew all the tricks. I knew exactly how to grind, how to manual, everything.
Yeah. It wasn't that. It was that doing it, the best way I was kind of describing it on Discord when I went to do it, right? The game looks beautiful.
Yeah.
The game looks like you remember it, but better.
Yeah, and sounds beautiful.
Basically how it goes, and it feels like the game should.
Yeah.
So here's where the issue creeps up for me. I think it's that essentially the way that some people talk about Teslas, right? I've heard Joe Rogan, but a bunch of other people talk about it in the sense of, like, once you drive a Tesla, it kind of makes traditional cars just seem stupid. Where it's kind of like, oh yeah, those are dumb. Why don't we just do this moving forward? And I know this is still specific to me, but I remember that the last Tony Hawk game I really played was Project 8. And that one had cool mechanics that were a little bit more real skateboardy, but still tied up in arcadiness. But Skate, and I haven't played a Tony Hawk game since Skate, realistically, besides Pro Skater 2 multiplayer with some friends back and forth on PS1, or my PS1 disc that I still have for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. But I think what happened is, like, when I remember as a skater and what feels natural to me, when Skate first came out and they introduced that whole flicking system, it kind of just hits that point where in my brain, the whole time I was playing it, I never really did bad. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm doing just fine at this, but it feels so dumb to jump on a skateboard by tapping a button when it feels so much more intuitive and natural and responsive to just flick a stick. And it feels that way for everything else. I know that, Tony Hawk has kind of it where it's like, oh, you hit square, but depending on which way you have your analog stick angle depends on if it's a kick flip or a heel flip.
Yeah.
But it's like, why would I not just do that here where I'm swinging it the way I need to do? So that's what it was for me, is I don't know that I care enough to do that when I can just go play Skate 3 on Xbox, or even Skate 1 on PS3 that I have.
Here's how you go into it from now on. You look at it like Forza. Tony Hawk is arcade, and Skate is simulation.
Here's the problem, right? Forza Horizon has moved more into Drive Club's arcade simulation territory, while Forza is still just simulation. And the thing is Tony Hawk is still too arcadey to me to be able to bridge that gap that way. Because I never cared for Forza Horizon until Forza Horizon 4, which does way more, much like Need for Speed does. It does way more to give you more simulation control, but still being arcadey.
Beautiful game.
Yeah. So either way, I'm not hating on it. I think that for what people wanted, it's great. I just don't think I think Chris ended up liking it. So I'll have the ability to play it. And if I have that ability to play it for free, I will give it more of a try than just a demo.
Yeah, like by the end of it, I'm like, this is really cool, and I really want to take this nostalgia trick, but it's not worth $40.
Now, I'll tell you which one for me.
Because I still have a Nintendo 64.
So you could play it on there.
Yeah.
But for me, I think where I would come back in, because it's a little more open, and I think that would be enough to get rid of the other constraints. I think I would be more likely to be very hyped about a remake of Thug.
Underground, yeah.
Yeah. because Thug had more of a story and it gives you something else to pull you. There's nothing like the hate for Eric Sparrow to drive you through.
What was it called? Was it the McFlip?
The kickflip McTwist over the helicopter.
Over the helicopter. That's what it was. The kickflip McTwist.
I really love that game
the
because
soundtrack
of
for that game's also
story was just so ridiculous.
Everything on that game soundtrack was a banger.
But outside of that, I did start Mortal Shell, and you were talking about when you wake up and you just have to think like, I want to play Mortal Shell or I want to play that game. That was Mortal Shell for me. I beat the game.
How long?
20 to 25 hours, depending on how you play.
Is it like New Game Plus, like Dark Souls?
There is New Game Plus. Cool. I'm in it right now.
Ghost is just not going to get played for a while.
And I know in a year full of great games that each one I've played and been like, man, I could see this potentially being game of the year. This is going to sound the craziest thing. I think the game I have enjoyed the most because of it being purely surprised. Here's the thing. I'm pretty optimistic about Souls-like games. And I tend to like more of them that most people don't. I thought Lords of the Fallen was good. Not great, but it was good.
I think you also like Salt and Sanctuary a lot, too.
I did not care for Salt and Sanctuary very much, but I did love Death's Gambit, which was a little different. Yeah. So anyway, I like the games that go on the outer skirts of it. I wanted to like The Surge. It just didn't quite stick with me. And my worry for this game, definitely once I saw the $30 price point, was...
I thought it was $40.
No, it's $30.
Even better for me then.
Yeah, so I was worried in that setup that it was going to end up being a game that didn't quite meet the potential. And because of the fact that it wasn't quite as good as Dark Souls, but it was also too similar to Dark Souls, that it was going to end up being a game that while I may have enjoyed it, it wouldn't just grip me to be like, yes, do that. Instead, this game is so unique and so different while still clearly being inspired by a game like Dark Souls, while also nailing the general feel and tone of the world and the way I like the mystery to unravel towards you. All of that, it exceeds so well at, while being different in the fact that there is no classes. Yeah. Everything is based off of what shell you go into.
Yeah.
And this is really one of those games original. Where clearly the idea came from just a base idea. Like, what if you had a game that was kind of like Dark Souls, but it was also like Warframe, where you're the same person, but you're changing your outer shell, and that changes what abilities you do and don't
What's
have.
cool about Mortal Shell is like the soul aspect of it is that there's no souls. Like in that sense, it's you got to go back to your shell.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The game is also more forgiving than Dark Souls, but in a way that feels accurate to the world and way that they're giving it to you. Yeah, so one of the mechanical things that kind of helps players who may be a little scared that it's as daunting as Dark Souls can be coming into, it is still that hard. And I had a very similar feeling to having to get acquainted with Bloodborne after playing so much Dark Souls, where I remember Bloodborne gave me the most hell in the first area, Old Yharnam. Or Yharnam, not Old Yharnam, but Yharnam.
What's weird about Bloodborne is like we had the exact opposite. Like where I think you think Father Gascoigne was hard for everybody, but then the end of Bloodborne was like it ramped up. Like Rom was the hardest.
Rom is the hardest boss fight. I'll give you that. But outside of Rom, Father Gascoigne was the person I had the hardest time with in that game. But outside of that, the thing for it for Amelia. Me was I remember playing. Yeah, Amelia Vicar is hard, but I beat her first try.
On my first playthrough, Amelia was the hardest for me.
But I remember I stuck in Central Yharnam or whatever for probably 3 or 4, maybe even 5 hours of gameplay, just trying to familiarize myself with the loop. All right, now Mortal Shell is a much smaller game. And that's part of why they talked about they priced at $30 because they looked at what content and value they had. But when you're looking at this game, you have a hub world, which is Fulgrim, and that kind of is like the Central Yharnam, but
or Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls 1 or something.
Yeah, where it's like everything happens around there, and there's enemies and other things. But when you go through, well, no, see, like the Nexus and like Firelink Shrine, where it's like your hub that you're actually no enemies or anything are there, is kind of right there in Fulgrim Tower. It's like the center of the map.
Okay.
And then Fulgrim outside of it has got its own sub areas and everything that you go through and find items, face enemies and different things, even some sub bosses. But then the major bosses within the game are each within areas that when you get to the edge of Fulgrim, you can go up and you see like a really ornate looking entrance that you walk into, and then you're in another area. It loads into a new area.
So like the customization of shells, how is that?
So there is
variety there.
There's not customization in shells. The shells themselves are your classes, essentially. And the way that those work out is very different. So the first one you get is kind of like the well-rounded. He can do a little bit of everything. Then there's the next one that's the scholar, and he's kind of an upgrade where he's still well-rounded, but his health, and he's got a little bit more health, and I think either the same amount of stamina or a little bit more stamina. And he also has the most resolve, which is how you do abilities in this game.
Is there magic shells?
No,
So
not yet.
There's no spellcaster shell.
No, not yet. Now, and when I say not yet, the game is a closed game. But they're talking about doing DLC potentially, and in the DLC, they had other plans for shells that they have not done, so they may come in DLC.
Yeah.
But so all of them are more based around physical contact, but there's also a ranged weapon called a ballistazooka that you can pull out, and it has huge bolts that you have to find, and it can impale enemies.
It's like a Dragon Slayer.
Yeah,
bro.
it's really crazy. But I guess where I was trying to go is that the shells are all based differently by once you unlock their name. So there's not a bonfire so much as there's these little figures that stand that essentially are like multitudes of the doll from Bloodborne, where you talk to them and you can level up and stuff through them and do all your stuff through there. But with each shell, as you're attached to them, you go and speak with her, and the first thing you have to do with any given shell is unlock its name to be able to do anything else, because you're going through its memories and kind of working out what's unique about that shell. So you have to unlock the name, which takes a glimpse, which is kind of like the same as how I'm forgetting what it's called, Insight in Bloodborne.
Okay, let's stop talking about this game now, because now I want to experience this for myself.
Yeah, I won't say too much, but essentially what you're going to do is you're going to unlock the name, and then from there you're going to get a skill tree that's kind of a round skill tree that it's not even a skill tree. It's honestly just an orb. You choose which one you want to do. They're not locked behind other ones.
Oh, that's cool.
And each person has got crazily different ones that change the way their play style is.
That's where
massively.
variety comes in.
Yes. And you can choose. You can always get all of them once you get far enough in the game and have enough glimpses in Tar. Tar is like the souls. But
interesting.
Yeah, the mechanic that I think everybody may need to know, because like in the Discord, Richard was talking. He was like, "Oh, it looks cool," but also he doesn't like hard games like Dark Souls. There is a system called Your Last Chance, and per spawn, per death, essentially.
Sounds a lot like Shadows Die Twice.
What you can do is you'll have your shell, and you'll see a little light in an orb that's beside your health bar. And what happens is, because you're inhabiting a shell, if you die, what actually happens is you get knocked out of the shell, and then you have this much health. One hit kills you. But you have crazy stamina. And you have to maneuver your way around all the enemies
to get to that shell,
to get back to the shell, and you can rebind with it, and it fully heals you completely.
Can you get knocked out of that shell, then go find another one?
Shells are weird.
Is it just too like
you're bound
hard
to a shell until you find another one? And when you find it, you can pick it up. But once you pick it up, it goes back to your main Fulgrim Tower, and that's where you change shells at.
I can see there being a lot of cool challenge runs with this game.
Now, what else is interesting is that there are items that let you eventually, as you go through the game, you can get effigies that are single-time uses.
Are they called effigies?
Yeah. And the way that they work is that you use them, and it will, through astral something, it'll switch your shell out with the shell that you have the effigy for.
Dark Souls 2.
So it's pretty interesting. I really, really think you'll like it. But I'm excited to hear what your thoughts are on it.
Can you play the game with no shell?
Actually, yes. There is a trophy for beating the entire game with no shell.
That means it's somewhat not a challenge, it sounds like then.
Oh.
Cool. I
It's weird.
I want to do a no shell challenge.
I'm going to do it because I'm 6 trophies away from platinum, 4 of which are fairly easy. I've just not done.
I'm like 6 trophies away from the Dark Souls 3 platinum. I ain't getting that no time soon.
Yeah, the 2 hardest ones are renouncing humanity, I think, which is it's beating the game in what's called Obsidian Black mode or something like that. Obsidian mode. It's weird. And then you have to beat the game with no shell.
I'm gonna love this game, I know for sure, but like dang it, this just sounds like a Dark Souls ripoff and not even a Dark Souls like. Renouncing humanity sounds like an ending trophy for Dark Souls.
It's crazy because, like I said, it's in some ways it's the least unique take on it because it's so much that kind of high fantasy that you get from a game like Dark Souls, but at the same time it's doing it in such a crazy different way.
Yeah, that it's comparable but not direct.
Yeah, it's like it's still unique.
Yeah.
In its own little take. So have that with what you will. So that's pretty much all I've done.
We'll start it tonight.
And I don't know what I'm going to play next. I'm probably just going to keep playing this until...
Moral Shell.
I'm probably going to keep playing this until Kingdoms of Amalur comes out.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so that's early next month. I've got a few days to keep playing this. But...
Dang, yeah, next month is like this week. Or next week.
Next week, yeah.
We get a 3-day weekend for Labor Day.
Ooh. moving into the community stake. The community stake last week was fairly simple. It was just a question based off of all the back and forth drama, going on around next gen upgrades. So it was, how do you feel about next gen upgrades of current gen games? How do you feel they should be approached from a cost perspective? Free, a small fee, or rebuying the game as a remaster, as we've seen in the past and done more, often. Over on Discord, our first one is Mr. Josh Ayers, one of our patrons. He says, I think it's a case-by-case basis. Ubisoft, even this gen with Black Flag, you could put the PS3 disc in your PS4 between a certain time frame and pay $15 to upgrade it to the PS4 version. But smaller games, of course, will be a rebuy. Controls thing sucks, yes, but anyone go to work for a few weeks and not get paid for your work. The big third parties can do this, but they can't. Oh, so I'm sorry. The big third parties can do this, or they get put into Microsoft's situation where it's upgrade program, which has skewed everyone's opinion on upgrades this gen. Even without updates, all PS4 games should work on PS5, so they would want to avoid people buying a game on PS4 super cheap, then get less money than they could otherwise, which is a good point.
Now, hold on. No, but it's a wrong point. I haven't seen a single negative point about smart delivery, nor has anybody.
I don't think he means it that way as much as smart delivery has, because it's happened, it's set an expectation that previously didn't quite exist.
But Sony's doing the same thing.
I'm not saying that. Yeah, I'm not saying Sony's not.
I'm just saying they're
but
both
Microsoft,
doing it.
And this is a weird thing because I don't know. From what I've seen, I didn't feel this way, but there's clearly a lot of people on both the Xbox side and people on the PlayStation side viewing it in different lights, but who view Microsoft's push towards the idea of smart delivery as part of the reason that third parties and even Sony are having to kind of push it, because Microsoft was behind the scenes. Again, I don't know how true this is, but Microsoft's apparently behind the scenes pushing people to do this, which kind of made everyone else have to do it so that they're not left behind.
That's how competition works.
That is how competition works.
And everybody loves competition when it comes to exclusives, so they can love competition for everything else if you want to be even.
So anyway, I get that, and I also get the idea of devs do potentially have to go back and work on it more.
See, we don't know, though. That's the thing that it's hard to talk about this because we don't know what these next-gen upgrades are going to be. If you're going to tell me that Control's upgrade will just be 4K at 60, which is not going to be, because you can't even do that on PC now, but it's going to be whatever. If it's a resolution and frame rate bump, then no, that's not worth the money. That's an update. That should be included for the price you pay for the game. Do you know why? How is this going to affect PC games? They're not going to get that update because that update doesn't exist on PC. It's baked into their hardware. And
that is actually one of the big things that I'm sure we'll get to. I know I've seen some from what people were saying, but the idea that PC, and that's been a prevalent thought process throughout all of this, is that when you're dealing with PC doesn't have you do anything because you automatically get the upgrades from just getting a more powerful PC. But you do hit a limit on certain games where the game was just not made with that in mind, so it can't even scale up that high anymore. It's like Oblivion. Oblivion's a great example. Yeah, you can't really play Oblivion in anything higher than 1080p naturally.
Or you can't
play with
maybe
it's 1440, but you also can't play with a controller unless you do a bunch of mods that other people have.
Those mods aren't worth it either.
They're not very good.
I mean, here's the thing though. It's like if I have a PC. If I go and buy a better graphics card, I'm not paying $15 to update Sea of Thieves or whatever I'm playing on PC. It's automatically there because that's the way PC works. How do they get away with this for just resolution and stuff like that? Now, if you're going to tell me that you're going to retexturize the whole game and it's going to have retexturization on every single thing, it's going to have 4K resolution bump, more settings and options for dynamic lighting, for RTX and all kinds of other stuffs. Sure. There's a conversation to be had there, whether the price point is dependent or not, we don't know. But for the most part, no. But we won't know. And I think there's not much else you can do, in my opinion, with this next generational bump that is prevalent. I don't think we're already getting some games in 4K, some games not. But then what are you going to get besides 4K and a resolution bump? More particle effects?
Potentially.
Are you gonna get
that, and that comes down to the argument of a remaster, right? Because one of the things that we see about remasters this generation, definitely when we saw a lot of the Bluepoint ones, is higher base resolution, of course, a higher frame rate. Typically, all the Uncharted games, even The Last of Us, we went from 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second. Yeah. And The Last of Us even went the extra mile to make sure that they redid all of the in-engine cutscenes that were still pre-rendered but in engine, so that they would be 60 frames per second, so you don't end up with the stuff that happens with certain games where they get remastered but then all the cutscenes don't get rebuilt, they're still low resolution, being upscaled and then being 30 frames per second, either being reconstituted, what do they call that, frame interpolated to be able to be 60 frames per second, or just being 30 frames per second and feeling weird.
Well, not only that, but here's the thing, how long did it take them to do that, and how long is the time distance between control launching and this update?
Yeah. Oh, I know. And that's the thing is, most games this Gen 2 get a different setup, because a lot of the things that I've loved about this Gen that we talked about is the idea that in-engine but pre-rendered cutscenes are so less common these days, to where most games, definitely in the latter half of this gen, have been set up to do all of their cutscenes within engine and real time, so that you're not having to have that disparity. Well, all you have to do is, hey, this is a cutscene, so while it's in real time, we're going to switch to this high model.
Most AAA games do that.
And that's what I should say. The games that sadly most people are going to be worried about.
Ghost does that fairly well, where it's like you're riding on horseback and then all of a sudden you're actually playing the game, and it's like that transition was really smooth. And I agree with Josh for the most part. He says it's a case by case basis. I agree. I think it is going to be a case by case basis. I think that with backwards compatibility in mind, you're probably not going to really care. You already are playing on your 4K TV. You're already unless it's something like retexturization of like the whole game, and it's literally like, this is where not RTX, what is it called? It is RTX, but what's the other side of RTX? Ray tracing. It's like, unless it gets all this stuff added to it, then even then it's like, what's the price on that?
I really do think that Control would have, which Control right now uses a lot of, I think, screen space reflections. So I'm not trying to get too technical with it, but if they do switch, I don't know, because the game is so stylistic that trying to rebuild the game to utilize ray tracing may end up being a lot of work, because so much work was done up front to make the stylistic.
They're not rebuilding the game, because they can already do that on PC. So the game already has it in there. They just got to port it.
So that's a real question I had. I don't know if Control on PC utilized RTX.
It does.
I didn't know.
It's actually one of the bench, and I could be wrong. I could be ray tracing. It's one of those for 100%.
Well, RTX is just NVIDIA's ray tracing support, but it's built in on a hardware level.
Yeah, that plus like the whole FreeSync and all that crap. Like the proprietary GPU stuff is annoying, but it's already baked into the game.
Yeah, at that
point, it's a porting game, and like all you got to really do is what my dumb little brain thinks is turn the game to ultra, something that or high, whatever would run on PS5 and Xbox Series X, and then just port it. Lock those settings down, and then
because that's the thing, is somebody has to go through and make sure that's the work, right? Is someone having to go through and say, well, maybe we just give them the game on ultra PC settings, but we have to make sure that the PS5, when doing that, can run these ultra PC settings from a quality standpoint for the entirety of the game without dropping frames or needing to go to a variable resolution or anything like that. And that's what I'm saying. It is a weird thing. Most of what he's really talking about, and he brings in a good thing. If you went to work, even if it's just for 3 weeks, if you went to work for 3 weeks and didn't get paid anything for it, you would be like, what the hell? And that's kind of what, in a very different way, but that's kind of what's going on here, is you're essentially saying the game should go do this, but it's with the idea that the game would hopefully sell more with this work being done, and then they would have a PS5 version that people could buy brand new.
This doesn't make sense to me, and this never has when people use this argument for game devs. The game's out. The game has been sold. They have made money. Why don't they just pay their employees to do this extra work?
Well, it depends on each company, right? Control, I assume this is a situation where 505, and that really comes up to 505 Games is highly likely to be the main person who's in control of how this game is going to handle its next gen upgrade.
Well, here's the thing: say if they have that person come in for a weekend or 3 weeks to do this, and nobody buys the update because of the negative press, does he get paid?
I don't know.
He does. Yes, he does.
I assume so, because you should have funding secured before you do the things.
And if they don't, you shouldn't be buying from that company anyways. And I think that's the consumer's fault for doing so.
If anything, I'd say the fact that transparency within how games are funded is actually a really big problem, because you don't know. You don't really get to make that decision. you don't get to go, oh, they had these people do a bunch of overtime and didn't pay them anything more for it, because that is essentially what we're talking about. It's someone doing more work and having to go there outside of the constraints of when they were supposed to just to get something added in, but not actually getting compensated for it. Now, because it's so hard for transparency on that, and that's why Jason Schreier gets all these articles about crunch and overtime that's not getting paid for, that is a huge thing. But going back to the PC side of things, Rude Days 93, a new patron. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
He says, I'm not very tech savvy, but from what I understand, the PS3 and 360 consoles had a completely different architecture than the PS4, Xbox One. So I can understand the remasters / paid upgrades from then. But now the current gen and next gen consoles are much more similar and are much closer to PCs than ever before, and you have never had to buy a game multiple times when you upgrade your PC. Exactly what we're talking about. Xbox has some sort of programming for free upgrades. EA has their upgrade program, and I'm sure PlayStation does as well. So why should upgrades not be free?
And that's the thing, too, is that I think that unless it's different, and I don't think it is, but in Josh's scenario, there's a guy going to work for 3 weeks for this update. That's not the case, right?
You hope not.
Well, I mean, from a technological standpoint, like, does that make sense? Like, that these settings are already in the game because they're on PC, and essentially PS4 is just running a different PC architecture than a Windows PC.
It's having to run down optimization. So the same thing would have to be done for the PS5 version. It would have to be, what settings are we going to base it off of, and then how do we tweak from there if the settings don't work perfectly there? Yeah, but we may have to do extra. So there is definitely someone working. We don't know the amount of work.
But this is post-game work. This is the standard stuff that they would be sticking around for bug fixes,
for updates,
for DLC updates,
which
for all
is
kinds
typically,
of stuff, and they're getting paid for that.
Typically behind the idea, and that's what I said earlier, it's behind the idea of selling the game to more people. The reason games continue to get updated now is because your hope is that for people who didn't buy it day one or early, that as you update it, fix different things and add more things, that it gets to a point where down the line they go, you know what, they've done enough. Maybe the price has dropped. Maybe they've added something I really wanted, so now I'm going to buy it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right?
It's all long-term support. It's the same as games as a service, but just the No Man's Sky take on it, where it's not about selling you something over and over again. It's about getting something to a point where you hope people change their mind and decide to buy it.
That's something that I've kind of come to a realization about, and that's what I was talking about earlier with being a patient gamer. There is no real world and no real self-gain in buying a game day one, unless it is something you are wanting to do because you're excited for that game. Like, you shouldn't feel pressured for, like I'm trying to think of a good example, because the rest of the games coming out this year that I know about or care about, I'm getting within day one window, like day 1, 2, 3, like Cyberpunk day one, obviously. Kings of Alanor day, probably like at the end of the week or something. But at the same time, it's say if Ghost came out tomorrow, what do I gain from buying Ghost tomorrow versus 6 days from now? And it's not something that I necessarily care about. Like, I mean, I care about it, but it's not something like I'm in a hurry to play. It's just one of those kind of interesting things. So I actually agree with Rude Days there. It's one of those things where it kind of is like it's more similar to PC. Like, they should be able to come up with a solution for this where somebody's not having to work for 3 weeks unpaid, because that doesn't make sense to do. And it just shouldn't be kind of a thing.
So I think one of the things going on right now too is this thought process that may be true. Again, definitely lately, I've not been having too much time to just dig into the Xbox side of things, since it doesn't immediately affect me. But I've seen people say that Xbox has something either planned or already functioning that is supposed to essentially be like, hey, put your game here, and then this is like something that's smart, set to automate the process of scaling the game up.
Which would make sense for what they have.
Yeah. You may not get something that's utilizing the power absolutely to its best core, but you can get something that you slot the game in and it goes, hey,
better.
Bare minimum, we're just going to run a quick thing. It's going to run through and see, hey, does it keep the game at 60 frames per second throughout all this? Okay, then we're just going to cap it here. It doesn't really matter what it is. Maybe we're not going to 4K, but maybe we're taking a game that was 1080p or 1440p and we're moving it to 1800p. And it's like, but it's still higher and it's capped, and that way the work is so minimal that you could afford to just go, maybe this will get more people to buy my game.
And it's mainly could easily do that too, because the Xbox is literally a modded Windows computer.
One of the things I said earlier, and I was going to say this anyway, but one of the things based off earlier is that Microsoft has set the expectation for free upgrades. I think realistically that's been happening all generation, but it's been happening with things that nobody thinks to expect it from. Warframe. a game that you don't have to pay anything for, has had multiple graphical updates, multiple huge updates that change the way the game works entirely. Then you have games that are closed
Bungie and Destiny too. They're both free, and they said last time they announced Beyond Light. Is your wife here?
Probably.
Okay. They're like 4K 60 frame update for consoles for free for PS5 and stuff.
Yeah, and that makes even more sense for that game. This is a game that you want people to continuously come back to. You want to give them an incentive to keep playing next gen and not forget about your game. Yeah. But No Man's Sky is the game, as I said earlier, that's the one that I really think has shown this is a game that never has once made anybody pay for an update.
Right.
It's never once had paid DLC ever. So when you look at it, the only benefit as to what they were doing was, we're going to make the game look better. They've done multiple graphical updates to that game. We're going to make the game run better. We're going to introduce new features like multiplayer into this game with no motivation outside of just hoping that we get more people to buy the game.
Yeah.
Now, it's not free work. Again, this is work that clearly costs them, but they've clearly had in spades the return of investment.
If Hello Games can continuously work on this game for nothing, these people aren't going unpaid.
Or
there's a system there.
Nothing outside of continued
no
game
monetary value, I should say. Yeah. True, another patron on Discord, he says, I am more than happy to pay for upgrades to next gen versions of games I plan on to keep playing, like Destiny or other games that I want to go back to. Seeing many developers offering upgrades for free is really just a plus for me. But on the other hand, I really like things like the control situation, where there is no path to upgrading other than buying the whole game again, are really not great. $5 to $10 would be how much I'd be willing to pay. And I think that kind of comes down to it too. It's like, how much are you willing to pay for this? For me, if it's a game I love, nothing. Like, I'm not willing to pay for upgrades.
I just love the way you chose to word it. Like, for me, a game I love, still not doing it.
Yeah, still like not doing it. Like, I'm not. That is essentially locking technology that you should be running behind a paywall. When you think about it, just in a very shallow way, you are locking minimum requirements for your console behind a paywall.
I think that depends on the game, right? Because I'm going to pull this off into something that actually is a good example for you, and just see how you'd feel about it. So, what are the main complaints that we know about Bloodborne?
Not 60 frames.
Not 60 frames. What's the other one? Even though it's 30 frames per second, it's got frame pacing.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I'm clearly, as somebody who understands what those things are, but does not fully understand how you go about fixing them, I don't know how much work goes into that. But let's just say that they were going to say, hey, you know what we're going to do? For $10, if you own Bloodborne, no matter how you own it, we're going to give you 4K 60 with perfect frame pacing Bloodborne. Nope. You still wouldn't care?
Nope.
And that's fine.
I'd wait for the
it's just a question.
I'd wait for the Blue Point remake. Because evidently that's going to happen. You shouldn't have to pay for a game that is receiving fixes like that.
Well, it's a difference saying, because
is it a difference?
The reason I consider it a difference is that you can clearly beat and love and experience Bloodborne in a way that's fantastic. Plenty of people have without these things. These are clearly coming back in and adding something just for the sake of giving you a better experience if you want it. It's the idea of, if they, there was a rumor forever ago that that Bloodborne Remastered was going to be a PS5 game, right?
Or Bloodborne Cart.
And see, my thing is the better way to word it. Let's just take away from the upgrade. Is Bloodborne Remastered a viable product in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay, so why would Bloodborne being remastered just via an update not be a viable platform?
Because they're redoing the whole entire game that way.
Well, remaster doesn't have to be. I mean, even let's just say the update was more of a remaster. That's why I say like retexturing, bringing up textures that were low.
Remaster, not remake. Yeah. I forget Muddy Waters.
And that's why, one of the things I said months ago that I would be really interested to see is, for all the games that can afford and the publishers that can afford to give you a free update, great. And I had no problem with that. I personally don't care. Again, my only problem with the control thing was the arbitrary line they drew. Yeah. It should just be a content thing. If you want it to only be that people who have this set content, which is all of the DLC and the base game, if you can prove they have that, they should get the update, if that's what you're doing for Ultimate Edition.
Yeah, and that's
where I stand on it. But I do like his idea, and it's something I said months ago, that what I think you may start seeing games do is, instead of being remastered as a completely individual release, I think you might start getting ones that are remasters by all things that you'd expect. Retexturization, bringing everything up, maybe even
no.
pulling in new character models, but doing so
because retexturization isn't necessarily a thing for remasters alone.
Oh no, it's not. It can happen in anything.
That's different. Again, that's what I'm saying.
No Man's Sky had it recently.
If they retextured Bloodborne in that patch, I'd pay for it that way, because at that point it's not just a resolution and frame rate bump.
It's more of a remaster.
The second things start charging for only frame pacing and frame issues and resolution bumps, I'll be going to computer. I'll be going to PC.
Frame pacing is the one that gets me. Frame rate and resolution bumps, I understand. But I think from what I understand about frame pacing, and this is a good example,
you would think that'd be fixed, though, inherently with the frame rate.
But apparently not, because this is one of the crazy things that happened. We'll use Horizon Zero Dawn.
Isn't frame pacing just the timing between
at
frames?
how it hits it? But that's based off of something in how the animations and things are synced up to different things.
I guess that's true.
So apparently it takes more work. It's an issue that starts too early on. It's really hard to fix from what I'm understanding. If you know more about this, I'm eager to learn more. But a good recent example of even a game moving to PC and doing a lot of work to make it work on PC still actually has frame pacing issues on PC that it did not have on consoles. Horizon Zero Dawn has frame pacing problems, even at 30 frames per second on computer, even at 1080p resolution, even at 14, all resolutions that are basic native to the PS4 version. But suddenly when you move it to PC and you start to extrapolate these things and move to 60, it actually introduces problems. So it's clearly something that happens from, I would imagine, an optimization standpoint. It has to be something that is either fixed or addressed, because I think it creeps up sometimes without people knowing, and then it's too hard to fix.
Let me
easily.
ask you this: let's say you bought Mortal Shell within a week of it coming out.
Yep. There's
frame pacing issues. Let's say that's a thing.
Oh, by the way, just so you know, game doesn't look amazing. It looks fine.
Yeah.
But I had not experienced a single frame rate drop in that game at all.
I haven't experienced a frame rate drop in Ghost yet either, which is
also, yeah.
Yeah. But let's say that game came out and it rated 30 frames per second, had frame pacing issues, but then 3 weeks later, they were like, "Hey, you can get rid of this, $5."
Yeah. No, I wouldn't pay it.
Exactly. That's the thing. Why would
I understand, but here's the difference between Bloodborne and it, right?
No, there is.
This is a brand new game.
I don't care.
And that's a game that has been closed off and sealed off, and people have moved on from.
It's even worse.
And people
of an
are coming back and
Bloodborne.
saying, "Hey,
it's even
maybe
worse.
we could do this." I don't view that, because, like I
been
said,
out for-
Bloodborne's still a playable game.
It is, but I'm saying it's even worse in that case because they waited until this became a thing to pay for upgrades to bring this to fix the game when they could have fixed the game for free back then.
Maybe, but
no.
What I should say is they can clearly fix it for free, because we saw not frame pacing issues, because
No
Dark Souls
Sky.
3 didn't have them, but we saw Dark Souls 3 way later get 4K 60, or not 4K, but we saw them get 60 frames per second.
I think it is 4K.
It's not native 4K. I know that.
Well,
much.
no.
But
no.
It got 60 frames per second or 4K is what it was. You could either run the game at 60 frames per second, or you could run it in higher resolution, I think. But regardless, it got an update for that free later down the line.
It's not exactly 60 frames per second either.
That game also was. Yeah, I know it's variable.
Yeah.
But even then, it brought the frame rate up. They did it way down the line, but also on a game that got multiple DLCs For free. So I think what it comes down to is whether the game has been considered capped off and closed off, or if it's been considered
every game
open.
in the world ever to have been created up until this point of control and this conversation, if there was frame rate problems, weird resolution problems, like where one day it'd be running at 720, then you get to this next section, it's running at 1080, and it's noticeable.
Yep.
That would have been fixed for free. So that's what I'm saying. If you're going to give me an upgrade and you're going to add in RTX, you're going to add in better particles, you're going to actually go do more work.
Exactly.
Then sure. But if you're going to tell me that your update just does the frame rate and resolution, absolutely not.
I'm actually entirely in agreement with you.
And you, the listener, shouldn't be paying for that crap either.
Yeah. No, I'm in agreement there. I just think that my point on Bloodborne and why I brought it up specifically is that if it were going to be touched now, since we're so many years past release, it would not just be touched with those. It would be, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to retexture the game, make sure that all the resolution on the textures is much higher so the game looks better. We're going to make sure all the frame rate is much better. We can go to 60 and there's no frame pacing issues. We're going to bump that resolution up to a native 4K.
You know where
maybe we're even going to do some kind of crazy stuff where we add some extra content that was cut.
Well, you really get kicked in the nuts.
And then you pay for it.
When you pay for that, then literally 5 years later, Bluepoint makes a remake. You pay for it again.
But all you're doing at that point is you're paying for the immediacy of getting to experience it better in the in-between before that remake. I don't think that that's necessarily necessarily a problem.
But what's the price on that?
Dark Souls Remastered is a perfect example. Dark Souls 1 was notoriously known for Blighttown being a mess.
The whole game.
But the whole game was not great.
Yeah,
yes.
The whole game was sluggish.
And you didn't get a solid experience until you came over into the PS4
Dark Souls
Remastered.
1 is responsible for a mod program, DS Fix, to be a thing.
I
And
know.
it's literally called DS Fix, Dark Souls Fix.
Yep.
It had so many weird little clunky issues with the game that somebody created a mod specifically for that game. And it's DS Fix. And let me tell you, when they announced the remaster and they're like 60 frames per second guaranteed, everything. I'm like that's one of those things because they did the lighting, they did the 60 frames per second.
Exactly.
They included the DLC for free.
The value proposition outside of that was worth it.
It was a much better package that you're getting than you tell me, hey, I'll fix your frame rate and resolution, $10.
They redid multiplayer on that too, didn't they?
They had to do no, not to my knowledge. I don't know what they would have.
I can't remember. If Dark Souls 1, could you have more than one companion?
Oh, now that I don't know about. I thought you meant like
I don't remember
invasions
either.
or something. I don't think I've ever co-opted in those games except I co-opted once with Corey on Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, you co-opted with me
Did
on
I?
Dark Souls 3. Yeah.
Did we co-op or did we just do the share play?
We did co-op once and then share play once.
Okay. So I don't remember the co-op at all.
But anyway, I'm going to read a couple more off here that are a little bit shorter and sweeter. The Snow Jedi, another one of our patrons. Thank you, guys.
I like his.
He says, I don't mind paying for PS5 upgrades depending on the title and publisher. I do think Red Dead Redemption 2 should get some sort of upgrade for free. It really depends on how it's done.
I don't understand.
I get it. You know why I get it? I think, and I know this sounds crazy, but games that have made hand over fist what it costs them to develop, there is no reason, and definitely when they're active online games like Grand Theft Auto and this, there's no reason that these should not be free. If I'm being honest,
there's no reason any of them should not be free.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know why.
No, I mean,
I got you. No, I don't know why, and I'm curious because it depends on what they do with the story. I'm a little surprised that because of how much money they've made, I'm surprised that Rockstar has not just said, for the sake of good PR, Grand Theft Auto's PS4 version, when you play on PS5, will have all the I don't think that there should be a PS5 re-release that's required for everyone. It should only be like if you want to buy the game new on PS5, you can.
Well, that's why everybody was laughable. That's why that whole situation's laughable.
Yeah, because it's like they weren't even clear about whether you had to pay for it or not. It was just, hey, Grand Theft Auto 5 is going to be on PS5. In what capacity?
It's free for PS4 users or whatever.
Well, it's going to be free on PS4
Plus
for some amount of months. It was weird. I got to go back and look.
Well,
at
no,
the
I'm saying
announcement.
but if you have it on PS4, you can run it on PS5.
Yeah. Well, again, backwards compatibility for sure, and that's something we haven't talked enough about. And I think someone mentioned on here is that the basic idea of backwards compatibility kind of makes this a little more pointless because you can still play your game. Nothing's keeping you from playing your game. Some people are mad that they can't play their game at a higher quality for no reason, but at least you can play your game. I guess that's because on PC, even games that don't benefit from scaling up, it's just that you can still play them.
Well, not only that, but I don't expect for every single thing that I'm going to play on PS4 to PS5, I don't expect everything to have upgrades.
Yeah, nor do I.
It's not a thing that you should expect.
Yeah.
You never ever when the PS3 came out, you didn't expect PS2 games to run better. When the PS2 came out, you didn't expect your PS1 games to run better.
No,
you didn't expect that. You shouldn't be expecting it now. If you're expecting it now because some companies are doing this for free, and then now you saw this one company come out and say, hey, it's going to cost money, and you saw them take advantage of it, don't be a fool. Because do not go into the next gen expecting every game you own will run better.
Yeah.
Just go into next generation. Just be grateful that you can run your games at all.
And any game that does happen to look better, kind of like, because like here's the big thing, right? No game, and this is weird, it's just like a slightly different situation, and then we'll probably move on. But the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X are really interesting examples of games getting free updates to show you the power of those systems.
Yeah.
So that I think that also is part of what led the expectation, because people look at it and go, well, did that game get a free upgrade? Well, yeah, actually The Last of Us, Uncharted 4, Second Son all got massive upgrades.
I don't think Dark Souls 3 had that update on the PS4, base PS4.
No, they didn't.
That PS4 Pro had.
No, I don't think so. I think PS4 Pro is what was required for it to run at 60.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean is like all of these things came as free upgrades as part of a mid-gen system that for all intents and purposes is essentially PS4.5.
Yeah.
So when you look at it from that sense of it being kind of like a half generation and you getting all these upgrades for free from both Sony and Microsoft and tons of third-party publishers as well who came back and said, you know what, we're going to make the game run better because you have more power to do so. It does kind of create the situation where I agree with you. You should not expect it. I understand a little bit why that expectation has been born, even though I don't think it should have been. But at the same time, when you do get something for free, instead of viewing it as something that is an inherent right of you as a console owner, just view it as something that you're getting as kind of like the cherry on top. Because the other example of PS4 Pro is base games from PlayStation 4 being able to utilize the boost mode to potentially run at better frame rate. Potentially, yes. And actually, boost mode sometimes makes games run worse. So when you look at them in those situations, it's kind of set up to where you should look at like situations where you do have that benefit is just nice. And it depends on how the game is made. You know, some games that are made with an uncapped frame rate are naturally going to benefit from having more power pushed behind them because they're not trying to hit a cap. They're going to go, oh, well, we're normally doing the best we can to stay above 30, but maybe we're between 30 and 40 on PS4. But since we don't have a cap, when you play on PS5, you might be able to play at 60 because it's not capped.
Yeah.
It may naturally hit a higher frame rate. But just be thankful for the benefits you do get and be careful of having way too much in expectation.
Yes. Please don't go into this with all the expectations in the world.
So, moving away from there, we're going to go ahead and head into the news, and a bunch of stuff happened this week.
A bunch of stuff. Some really interesting stuff. I guess will be the topics of our show with some DC stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you want to hop into that first?
We can.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, we go ahead. So, I guess the first thing we'll do here is that we finally got to see an update on both the announced at this point in time future of the Batman series and gaming, as well as the continuation of the Arkham universe by Rocksteady and Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, respectively. God, that was a mouthful. So here's the thing: Gotham Knights looks to not include our titular Batman character, as is surprising because the game was announced beforehand as Batman Gotham Knights. But do you notice that the actual badge is just Gotham Knights, but with the Batman symbol?
Listen, these games have never been good at keeping secrets.
Oh, for sure.
Like Jason Todd in the third one or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just,
but I guess what's weird about that is it almost seemed like it went from being called Batman Gotham Knights to where I think now the game is just being referred to as Gotham Knights.
Do you know what's weird? These games are so similar. 4 playable characters with all different abilities. What is this?
I thought
these are 2 of the same flavors of cookies over here
by 2 different developers who have both brushed on the same.
And then
franchise.
like Rocksteady switched from making the Arkham games to making this game, and you would think that Warner Brother Interactive would be making Suicide Squad, but they're not.
Well, here's the real crazy thing, right?
Because
going into rumors and different discussions that have happened at some point in time, because Arkham Origins,
right?
The first game from WB Montreal, the people behind Gotham Knights,
yeah.
It hints at the Suicide Squad. When you beat it, and then when you also beat the game that was a side game, which was Arkham Origins Blackgate.
Yeah.
There are hints towards Amanda Waller and going towards all through the Suicide Squad stuff. So the idea was that they were going to make a Suicide Squad game while Rocksteady went on to do whatever.
Killer Croc's also in the first one too, isn't he? Or is he in the second one?
I don't remember.
It's like it's an Easter egg.
But the point being, clearly WB Montreal were setting up for Suicide Squad. There has been rumors and reports and all sorts of stuff that they at various points had gotten a Suicide Squad game kind of up and running, but got canceled. Who knows why? And you would imagine, okay, fine, Rocksteady's going to move on, but then WB Montreal would make the most sense to just keep on making the Batman games that everyone loves. And you have plenty of Batman that you can brush up against without having to actually continue the Arkham universe. You can go to Batman Beyond. You can move completely past it.
I wish.
I wish too. But you have plenty of Batman stories that you could have gone through. So it's fine. It's reasonable. It makes sense. The weird thing about this game, and this is not crazy spoiler necessarily for Arkham Knight.
Well, they already spoiled the ending of Arkham Knight in the beginning of the trailer.
But they also didn't, because this is not Arkham Knight continuation, and that's the weirdest thing. So I guess it's easier for me for just a second to go, Arkham's game is going to be the Suicide Squad. And right now, all we got to see was way too early of an announced game coming in 2022.
Yeah, a game that's going to be here 2 years, and we saw a CGI trailer.
We saw what is very likely a pre-rendered CGI trailer. If that is real time,
no,
they should have said so. But there's no way.
No way that's real time. It
did look fantastic though.
If it's that far out, that's all they've done on this game is make that trailer. It did look good. It looked really good.
But more importantly, also, did you get Sunset Overdrive vibes? I'm far from the first person to say that, but as soon as it came on, I said, "Whoa,
yeah,
this is Sunset Overdrive to a T."
I've said it before, like in the past couple of weeks or months. I was like, I really want to play Sunset Overdrive. It's like something to do, and I was like, I saw that, and I'm like, this is a sign. Like,
you need to go do it.
I need to go play it.
So this is where the waters get real rocky. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League is the continuation of the Arkham universe.
Which,
so that means that Harley is the same Harley that we've experienced throughout all the other games.
Which doesn't make sense on one of two levels. One, completely different person. That's not the same Harley. Like, stylistically, voice, everything. That's not.
Oh, actually, that was Tara Strong.
But it's not the same voice that she used in Harley as Harley, though. That's much more.
It was really. Now clearly stylistically, they're basing her way more off of Margot Robbie.
Well, that's what they're doing with the voice too. Yeah. Her voice wasn't that loud, obnoxious in Arkham games.
Yes, it was.
I don't remember that at all.
Positive, I promise you.
I don't remember that at all. Because anytime I hear Margot Robbie's Suicide Squad Harley Quinn, I cringe because I like how like screechy it is. I don't remember Harley Quinn being that screechy at all. I think the most screechy she ever got was when you had to carry her in Arkham City.
Yeah. For
that one mission. She was much more tamed, I thought. But is this gameplay?
No. This is Arkham, something completely different.
Oh. But what's really, really weird is why is this Injustice? That's classic Harley, though. That is not the New Yorker accent that Margot Robbie does.
That was she didn't have a New Yorker accent in that thing yesterday, though.
BS.
I promise you,
Mr. J. Like that's the thing of like that's
also exactly how she sounds.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's how she should sound. See,
that's exactly how she sounded yesterday. Yes, it is.
I will pull up a video right now.
Well, look, we'll talk more about that off podcast. I shouldn't have even done that.
I don't like Margot Robbie. I do not like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn.
Nor do I. In
her voice,
I don't like. I don't either.
Stylistically, she looks the part, but yeah, her voice is not good.
But also, I didn't like Suicide Squad at all. So.
Why is Injustice Superman here?
I don't know that it is. It's really hard to tell what's going on.
He killed a random human being. First
he killed somebody.
That's the second of all. That looks like a good guy.
Yeah, and he clearly looked messed up. Now,
or is that Red Sun Superman or whatever that guy is?
Literally, who knows?
Superman has so many.
Yeah, there's a lot of things here, but going back to what makes this weird is that's the continuation. So that means clearly Batman will not be in that game if the ending of Arkham Knight, the secret ending, is the whole true. But then the weird part is the trailer that you're talking about.
Yeah, we saw literally the ending of, one of the endings of Arkham Knight play out in the Gotham Knights trailer, and I'm confused.
So I was confused at first because in my mind, all of this is a code black. I'm dead. You're getting this because it's automatically sending that to you. The Batcave at Wayne Manor is gone. You can't use it, but we have another place that you can still use
for the
some
old
stuff.
Tech or whatever.
Yeah, and you have all this stuff going on that's like, okay, clearly, and you have the beginning where it's like a news reporter being like, there's been an explosion, and then it cuts off for a second, and it's like, billionaire philanthropist Bruce Wayne is, and then it cuts off again.
Yeah, it always does that thing like where if it follows movie rules or TV show rules. If you don't see them die on screen and they die off screen, they're not dead.
Yeah, I think that too.
Yeah,
but that's the crazy thing here is that for all bits and purposes, you'd think that. But here's another couple of things that throw a couple of wrenches in that potential thing that this would be the continuation of the actual Arkham.
Hold on. Is your multiverse a theory or is this?
No, this is a theory. It has not been talked about at all.
Okay, so here's the
thing.
They're
saying right now that they consider this its own universe. But here's the thing about what's going on across all of DC right now. The multiverse has been established in DC for a while, but it's not touched yet necessarily. They are kind of brushing against it, and it's going to set it up in this coming Flash movie, which is Flashpoint Paradox, that they're basing the new Flash movie off of.
Wait, a live action Flash movie?
Yes, the new Flash movie is going to be based off Flashpoint Paradox, and the whole point of it is to set up the idea of the multiverse in the movies. That way, things like Matt Reeves' Batman that's coming that looks sick, and the Joker can exist as one-offs, but they're just in their own multiverses.
Yeah.
But they don't have to play into the bigger story unless they decide they want to. So it lets them have freedom to kind of create different movies of the same characters in wildly different ways.
For those that don't know, Flashpoint Paradox, go watch it. A very, very, very quick spoiler-free synopsis of that movie is the Flash gets put into a different multiverse.
Or a different universe.
Well, it's a multiverse at this point. I don't think they had a name for that back then, did they? Because that was like 2010 or 11 that movie came out.
Yeah.
But
they may have had it in the comics, but not in because I don't keep up with the comics at all these days.
DC live action or DC animated movies are the only good thing about DC to me. That's not graphic novels, I should say. Graphic novel, I don't like the comics or the games, but graphic novels. But he goes to an alternate reality where Bruce Wayne dies. Bruce Wayne's mom, Martha Wayne, is the Joker, and his dad is Batman. Go watch it.
Yeah, it's
That's
really
all
good.
I'm going to say about that.
So anyway, with that, the reason I think this is going on is that if Rocksteady, and it makes sense to me in the long run that Rocksteady would continue with something that's wildly different, but still in their own universe.
The only thing I don't see about Suicide Squad being a sequel is it thematically doesn't make sense.
What do you mean thematically?
Like, that wouldn't be the sequel because Gotham Knights would be, kind of thing. Like, Gotham Knights exist to act as a pseudo sequel of that, where I think Suicide Squad acts as a new game to introduce either a team based like kind of combat game, pick your own character, or it's going to be a single player Borderlands style, like pick your own of 4.
So I have a little bit of an idea about what's going on here and why they're choosing to do this. So you have Marvel, right? And so far from what we've seen, none of the Marvel games that they're making, for some reason, Marvel, despite being so quick to make sure that they built a universe in the cinematic side, has been very much saying and proving at this point that they want every Marvel game to be separate. So Spider-Man is going to be separate, and the Spider-Man that we're going to find in Marvel's, as you'd think, being exclusive on PS4, you'd think that Marvel's Avengers would be the Spider-Man that we know, but it's not. It's a completely new take on the character.
It's not Yuri's Spider-Man.
Yeah, so then you look at Iron Man VR. That's its own thing as well. Its own side story. Then so when you look at all three of those being separate, and presumably the future being separate, I think that there's one smart thing that DC might be doing. DC was too slow to try and come with the idea of the DC extended universe or whatever that they decided to name the movie universe. That did not do well for them. Like, it did well monetarily.
Did you see the Snyder cut of the Justice League? That does not look like the same movie for the most part.
Oh yeah, no.
I am so
Joss completely recolored it and everything. He took away all of the Snyder flair that you'd expect and made a movie that was way more colorful.
It's kind of like the original Suicide trailer. The original Suicide trailer, if you remember, it was very slow. It was very dark. The music was, I forgot what the music was, but it wasn't classical music, but it was not pop. It was not Queen like they did with the later trailers. It was very much an Ayers thing. Like that was Ayers' cut that you saw, but we never did.
You don't have Suicide Squad?
Yeah.
I don't think he never did Suicide Squad. The original person who was going to be the director for Suicide Squad was not Zack Snyder.
No, I said Ayers.
But yeah, whatever his name is. Yeah, I don't actually know the director's name, but
I can't think of his name either. But I still thought it was Ayers. I might be wrong.
So going back to that though, so in the movie situation, they were slow to do the multiverse, or to do the idea of a universe that's consistent across all the games. Now, what I think they're doing right now is that they want to be able to expand on the gaming thing, because unlike Marvel was the first to make a really profitable and well-received cinematic universe, and at least in terms of continued games, on the gaming side of things, DC was wiping the floor with them well before that, because Arkham Asylum, the very first real DC game where they were like, we're going to put real stock behind this, it knocked it out of the water.
Yeah.
So for them to continue that, but also find a way to be able to start bringing in new characters from outside of just the Batman section of DC is smart. It makes sense for me to bring in things like, seeing Deadshot and seeing all these different people and saying, okay, we're going to bring in Superman finally. People have been wanting Rocksteady to do something with Superman. So in a way, you're getting it. And then we're going to continue off that way. And then that lets Rocksteady's Arkhamverse be the continued big main universe. But then what they're going to do, I think, with these side games is introduce the idea of a multiverse, so they can have games that don't have to fit in with the main Arkham verse, as we're going to call it, or the Rocksteady verse, but they still get to exist and have their own merits as their own game. And I think that's what's going on. Since Marvel's keeping all their games separately, but finally stepping up to having good games, I think they're going, well, we've already had good games. We're going to make a universe out of our games and be able to do what you've done on the cinematic side.
Yeah, they're going to control what Marvel controls on the cinematic side in the game universes.
Yeah. So the reason that the Gotham Knights thing is weird is if you look at the trailer, there's a couple of dead giveaways that suddenly make you go, oh, there's no way this is a continuation. One of the things is in the flashback thing, or in the little video that plays from Bruce Wayne, he says, since Commissioner Gordon died. Well, Commissioner Gordon did not die in Gotham Knight. Or not Gotham Knights, in Arkham Knight. He retires. So it's already your first wrench.
Didn't he die in Arkham Knight, though?
Nope. He retires in Arkham Knight at the end of the game.
Huh.
So more importantly, that's number one. Clue number two, Arkham Origins establishes that the Oracle, who is Batgirl and who we see here, Barbara Gordon, she clearly is still alive, but in Arkham Origins, Joker comes to her apartment and shoots her, and she is paralyzed.
That's how they, yeah.
And in this, we see her walking without any device. So this is clearly a different group of people meant to play on what you like in the Batman games, which is kind of like the exploration of Gotham.
Well, it's not Rocksteady doing this game, so that might be where it makes sense on where they're using a Rocksteady trope. Like they obviously they're all the same company in a way.
Yeah.
They're using that universe to get you enamored with the game, but then they're like, well, just ignore all the crap that happened, just play these characters, kind of thing.
It's either, see, the thing is, they've already confirmed it's their own universe, because it either has to be their own universe or they're having to retcon a bunch of stuff, and I can't see them wanting to retcon, because one of the number one criticisms that people get when they start to try and expand stories out is that you're doing it at the cost of having to act like other things didn't happen or changing things to where suddenly something happened that clearly did not happen.
I think I realized it. I don't like Harley Quinn's voice when it's done by Margot Robbie because it's coming out of a human being,
and it's so animated that it seems hard.
and it's harsh.
So one of the things
I'm trying to think about like they sound somewhat similar, but it's not. Maybe, and it's also that I'm used to Tara's, because how long have we been with Tara's Harley Quinn? 20 plus years.
Well, it depends, but yeah, she's been the most consistent
because she came in animated, yeah, and that came out in 2005, right?
Late 90s, early 2000s.
Maybe I'm thinking about the animated movie. But yeah, we've 20 years that we've been with her as Harley Quinn, so now it's something different.
92.
92.
Mm-hmm.
When did she enter the picture then? Because she probably wasn't. She's probably what?
92 to 95? No, Tara Strong's like in her late 40s.
Oh, is she? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then she might have been the voice for Harley since then. And if that's the case, that's 30 years old. So and maybe it's just that I've heard her voice for the past 30 years, and I'm just like, that's what she should sound like.
Yeah.
I don't know, though.
Well, either way, it's one of those things where I think it's fine that they're doing this. It took me a little bit to get to a point where I was able to be excited. No, I shouldn't say that. I was so confused. The excitement took backseat because I was like, what is going on with this universe? Because when I first see it, literally, I watched the trailer, and I haven't even watched it a second time. I just watched the trailer, and my initial thought was, oh, this is a continuation. Then I started thinking about it more and more and more, and it kind of killed me. I was like, what is this?
I watched Matt Reeves' Batman trailer like 5 times. I told you that already. I
know. It looks really good, too.
And see, this is what's crazy about these two games. One of which not really being a Batman game, even though it's Arkham.
It's still Batman. I mean, it's clearly the Batman universe.
But it's not like...
Or Batman characters and subsets and whatnot.
Batman focus that we know of. What has me excited, and I should preface this, I am more of a fan of DC when it comes to Batman and Watchmen than anything else in Marvel. But then you throw Marvel at me, and you throw a couple of different graphic novels at me, and you throw a couple different characters at me, and I like Marvel more. All DC has going for it for me is Batman and Watchmen. And those are the two I think they've done the strongest out of everything else.
Across the board.
When you look at any Batman graphic novel, specifically Court of Owls. I think I've said it before on the podcast. Court of Owls is one of my favorite Batman graphic novels, if not my favorite, other than Killing Joke. And you had that at the end of that trailer. Now, I'm not going to tell you to read Court of Owls if you're interested in this game. I actually recommend you don't. Because if it's going to go across the same exact storyline, it's actually going to be really cool and really well done.
Yeah, we'll see.
I also, though, if you don't really care about that, do go read Court of Owls, because it is an amazing graphic novel.
Yeah, but I think Saul's thing is a good point, though, because one of the big twists in Arkham Knight, if you've been a Batman fan for any length of time, you knew what it was.
You knew who the character was.
And so knowing a little bit about stuff can sometimes ruin twists that they're trying to do. But so interesting thing on Gotham Knights is that it is a cross-gen game. Even though it's coming 2021, it's going to be on both PS4 and PS5. Whereas, not surprisingly, Rocksteady's Suicide Squad will be 2022, but it will be exclusive to next gen. I'll give them that at least. So we'll see what ends up happening from it. But I do think that they showed off Suicide Squad way too early. I think showing Gotham Knights today, or not today, this week made sense. And I think I would have waited until next year. Maybe March of next year, and been like, hey, 2022. But
I looked at the wrong timer, and I'm like, we're not recording.
Yeah, we're recording, thankfully. Yeah. So next thing up, though, now that I'm thrown off from here, but Ghost of Tsushima also had big reveal in the surprise cooperative multiplayer mode coming this fall titled Legends. The mode is inspired by Japanese mythology and follows 4 warriors who have become legends in stories told across Tsushima by its inhabitants as they fight their way through locations inspired by Japanese folklore, as well as enemies inspired by the same themes. Players can team up in groups as small as 2 players and up to 4 players with 4 different classes available: the samurai, the hunter, the ronin, and the assassin, whose unique abilities that differentiate the classes will be highlighted at a later date. This is really cool.
It's
really
cool.
crazy.
And really free.
And really free. You know what's really interesting about this?
We should play this.
Last week, I almost included a thing where in an interview, Nate Fox said, someone asked him about multiplayer in games and how they'd not done it, and he said, "Yeah, don't rule it out for potential future releases." And then a couple of days later, it's like, "Oh, by the way, here it is." It's not multiplayer, I suppose, in the competitive sense, which I don't know if I would have liked in this, so maybe. But
something co-op. I've said it before. This has kind of always been a hot take of mine, but co-op will make any game better.
I agree. The ability to co-op.
The ability to, not forced, but the ability to experience a game you love with your friends can only make that experience better. And then if you don't agree with that, then hey, guess what? You don't have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Mortal Shell, that's actually one of the things that one of our patrons, Brood Cold, had said. He was a little bummed that it didn't have the multiplayer feature set from Demon Souls and Dark Souls. But surprisingly, it doesn't feel absent at all.
Can you do messages?
Nope.
Oh, see, that would be cool.
Maybe it's a good thing, though, because maybe that would have been too on the nose while also a lot more expensive. Maybe they wouldn't have been able to hit that $30 price point if they're having to worry about servers.
Other games have messages. Especially like Salt and Sanctuary, the worst Souls-like game. Yeah. That's a hot take there.
It is the worst Souls-like. Okay, I'm not going to... I think that the Surge is equally as bad.
I think the Surge is better. The Surge had some cool design going for it. Salt and Sanctuary was great. It looked like they used... what was those comics called?
Adobe Flash is what it looks like they animated, but... To me, that's what it looked like. Anyway, next thing up, the next Call of Duty game has been revealed to be the long-leaked Black Ops Cold War, with a teaser trailer showing off clips from throughout history with the tagline, quote, "Know your history, or you'll be doomed to repeat it." The teaser ends with the announcement of a full reveal on August 26th, so very soon we'll be able to see gameplay. I actually think that from a sheer marketing standpoint, they've done a good job with this game.
There's going to be time travel in this game.
I mean, honestly, the Black Ops stories have been the most interesting ones so far. Outside, well, I still say interesting. As much as I love Infinite Warfare's, it's a great story, but it doesn't go nearly as crazy as Black Ops 3 and whatnot. Yeah. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Next thing, this one's kind of crazy, and I put it on here just more for the sake of what? But there's been a lot of this happening lately. So V-Blank, the developer behind Retro City Rampage and Shakedown Hawaii, is bringing what will likely be the last PS3 release by porting last year's Shakedown Hawaii to Sony's last-gen console right before PS5 makes its way out. Now, the reason I say that this is not as surprising as it could be is I don't know if you've seen, there's been people who have been making new Genesis games for Sega Genesis. There's been people who've been making new Dreamcast games.
These are little clicks that do this though. This is kind of weird though.
It's crazy to me because it's like the
that's
fact that you can have a whole brand new release on the Sega Saturn.
That's almost a hobbyism kind of thing.
It is, for sure. But also, most of the games are actually really good.
Yeah, I bet you they are.
Like Shakedown Hawaii, this game's actually, it got ported to Wii U.
So weird.
They've seen a lot, they ported Retro City Rampage to the Vita at a time when Vita wasn't necessarily just sprawling with stuff to do. So they clearly like just having their games on other places, and their games aren't that complex. So it's easy for them to be able to pull that off, which is just cool. If nothing else, the big thing for me is going to be seeing how well this sells on PS3.
For those 100 copies
for maybe? Those super patient gamers. And more importantly, do they bring this to Vita? Is it on Vita? I don't actually know.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah. Last year's smash hit Untitled Goose Game is getting co-op.
See?
To cause chaos with a friend and a free update hitting September 23rd.
What did I tell you?
There's another game, Donut County, I think might be interesting if they would design some levels to be set up to where 2 people could be warring with
I still want to play Donut County.
Yeah, that game's fun. I really did like it. Next thing up, PS Plus members are being given an odd but added value nonetheless with their sub with the next 10 months, including a free NBA 2K21 card pack per month. So the in-game card pack. Well, for people who play NBA 2K21, it is because you otherwise have to buy those with
Guess
real
what?
money.
And in 10 months, you'll be playing NBA 2K 2022.
Yep, that's true.
Whatever they call those games.
Now,
NBA
this next one's
2K,
cool. I mean, they are just 2K, but
2K 2021.
yeah, 2K21 is the one.
2K21
2K22 will be next year's.
or 22. Yeah.
So this one's interesting for one reason. Crysis Remastered is finally dated on PS4 after its initial delay. Those interested can pick the game up starting September 18th for $29.99 with a host of improvements, including software-based ray traced water reflections, only on the PS4 Pro and presumably Xbox One X versions of the game, so not the base model of consoles.
Dang it! I can't get that on my Switch.
So yeah, the game is on Switch, but it does not have ray tracing.
Right. I still don't have a Switch yet.
So that's actually it's got HDR support, higher texture quality. Like actually, they went back because the game's got so much more overhead. They went back and made the base texture resolutions upwards of 8K, depending on what system you're playing on. So the textures are very high quality, which is good. You should at this point. The game needs that if you're going to try and go in like a 4K resolution at this point.
When that game goes on sale for like $10, I'll probably pick it up.
Probably. I actually really like the games. I would love to see Crysis 2 remastered as well. But
Crysis 3, whichever one had the bow. I played a lot of PvP.
Crysis 3
on
had
that
bow.
one. Yeah.
I never got to play it, but it looked cool.
The
I just didn't
PvP
get a
was
chance to
cool.
play it. So that's all thanks to the new Cry engine, which is kind of cool because I like when developers are pushing something so far. Definitely a developer who's been known for pushing the line and being like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to ray trace on current gen consoles.
Yeah.
Which is
on
just
a 10-year-old game.
weird. So I wonder how well it'll work too, since it's not going to be hardware accelerated. It's going to be software accelerated.
I don't know. A lot of CPU usage, I bet.
But the game is so, I shouldn't say it's closed, but for a modern day game, it's a pretty small scale in comparison. Like back when the game came out, it was massive in scale in comparison to things. And that's why Far Cry 2 hitting consoles was so crazy.
Yeah.
Because Far Cry 2 was massive at a time when that was not common for games. So I don't know. That's real interesting. Next thing up, though, and I don't know if you saw this. I didn't get a chance to actually, or no, I did get a chance to check it out. What am I talking about? Much like Lost Souls aside, another Chinese developer is making waves due to the recent trailer dropped for their game Black Myth Wukong. The team is made up of ex-Tencent employees.
Nope.
Yeah, go screw yourself, Tencent. under the name Game Science, and they've made a game that rests somewhere between looking like a Souls-like, but also having high-action combos and stuff like Devil May Cry and God of War. So that's kind of interesting take. The game was given no release date and only hinted at releasing on, quote, mainstream consoles, end quote. So this is seemingly very similar to Lost Soul aside in the regard that it's being shown way too early.
Being made by a Chinese developer.
But for a real reason. It's being made by a Chinese developer, but also they've both gotten a ton of attention, and they've likely are going to be able to use that to turn into some kind of a deal. Because I don't know if you remember, Lost Soul Aside got Sony backing behind it to come up, and that's like some of these other China Hero Project games that they're doing. But it does suck that for these games to get out there and be noticed and get the kind of feedback and fanfare that they do, just so a big publisher will go behind it and be like, maybe we should pick this game up, is unfortunate because you end up seeing the game years too early. But it looks really good. So it's clearly going to be a next-gen release. I would not be surprised if this is a game that we don't see for another 3 years.
I think I saw this one. 3 years. Quit being generous.
Well, Lost Soul Aside is about 3 years old, and we
still don't know anything about it.
It's seemingly supposed to be coming this year or early next. From what they were talking about earlier this year.
It ain't coming this year.
I'm really...
It ain't coming
We'll
this
see.
year.
I'm not saying that it is, but we'll definitely see.
I'm saying it's not, though.
The fact that they had that, it'd be different, right? They had that demo that they gave out and had people play at PSX, or not PSX. Maybe it was at PSX, but then it was at another event. At this point, if they would release that demo for everyone else, I'd be more inclined to believe it's coming this year.
But they're not.
But I don't think they are either, sadly. So why can't demos come back? But this next thing is pretty cool as well. I don't know if you saw this, but Bethesda and Arcane's Deathloop is utilizing the adaptive triggers on the DualSense in a neat way by blocking the triggers when your weapon jams, something that actually takes place before the animation plays out in-game to let players know to unjam their weapon in a physical sense instead of just visual. So when you're going to do it, it will stop your trigger and you can't use it because your gun's jammed.
So wait, it happens before it does in-game, though?
So like... When your weapon gets jammed and you go to do it, before the animation plays out of your character realizing it's jammed, you feel it.
Oh,
because it
feels like a weird dissonance, though, right? Like you'll be fighting like, why not fire my gun? And then he'll be like, oh yeah. I was like, but
Well, the reason that's exactly so. Right now, when you have a game, right, you don't typically know that your gun won't fire until you go to try and fire, and it's not that anything physically stops you; it's that you have to wait for your character animation of like smacking the hell out of your gun and messing with it.
But it's typically pretty quick.
I mean,
I just hope
you're still talking 3 seconds, depending on the game.
I hope it's less than that. I hope it's you pull a trigger and your brain thinks, "Oh, jam!" And by that time, you looked at the gun and you're like working on it.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like it is.
I think it's more of an immersion thing and giving you that feedback before the character on screen does, so that when it's happening, you're aware of what's going on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like as long as it's in a very timely manner, it will be very, very well done for immersion.
I think mechanically is what matters here, because if they're giving you this information, and I actually don't mind games where you have to hit a button to unjam your weapon.
I don't mind that either.
If it's going to be that you feel that, and before the animation even starts, you can go ahead and hit a button and start getting your character doing the stuff to unjam your weapon, great. And again, it's just an immersion thing. And I think with what PlayStation has been talking about, and it's easy to talk, right? It's harder to show and be like, hey, here's games that are actually using this technology in a cool way.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Deathloop right now seems to be exclusive to PS5 for some reason, or at least like timed exclusivity.
Yeah, the marketing shows that so far.
There's nothing saying that Deathloop won't come to Xbox Series X, and there's nothing about this feature that keeps the game from working on Series X. But if you play on PS5, you have an added feature for immersion that Xbox just doesn't get, which is cool.
Yeah.
So I personally like that, and my hope for this, as much as I don't think that this is actually true, my hope is that seeing a third-party publisher, definitely someone like Bethesda, who have had a kind of a shaky relationship with Sony, do this. It could just be Sony pushing them to be like, hey, do something and we'll give you money along with this timed exclusivity. Or it could be that Bethesda's just like, this is a cool feature and we want to use it. My hope is that more developers are going to look at some of the interesting aspects of the DualSense and choose to legitimately use them, not just because someone came behind them and said, hey, we'll give you this much money if you find a way to use it, and more that they were just playing and they're like, it'd be really cool if we just stop you from being able to use the gun because we had the ability to do so.
It's a cool idea. I hope more things take advantage of the controller.
Yeah, because it's just a shame to see stuff be so minimally used, because the touchpad is just a glorified start menu for most games.
Yeah.
And it's not that that's not a problem, because it relieves the need for a start button. You can give options another function if you want. Like you can give actual pause, and then you can use the touchpad to go to your map or something like that. But
I still to this day get thrown off every time. If there's a button that requires me to hit start or options to open the menu, I hit touchpad because it's different every game. There's not a universal button for that.
You know what's really weird? God of War 3, and maybe even the other ones, but God of War 3 I remember being very specifically that to pause the game on PS3, the DualShock 3, you had to actually pause the action. You had to hit select. If you hit start, it'd go to your upgrade menu.
Weird.
And I was like, I would have flipped that. I would have made it to where select goes to your upgrade menu and the start button actually gives you the pause functionality that most games utilize.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. Very odd setup, but that's okay. Okay, look, we got 2 more things on here. Yeah. So this next one is kind of interesting. Despite both companies not giving a firm date or price, Sony for some reason has seen it fit to reiterate once more that PS5 will be coming this year. Now, here's the real weird thing about this. Microsoft have had the Series S leaked. Most of what is coming out is probably true, if not really close to being true. But both Sony and Microsoft both need to still get some marketing out of the way and expectations out of the way for their main consoles. But then Microsoft also still has the Series S to fully unveil before all this. You would imagine that the Series...
Granted, if it's launch.
Granted that the Series S comes at launch. We don't know that. And it could very well likely be that the Series S comes beginning of 2021 and it's a later product.
Yeah.
But right now, it seems crazy to see both of these things going on and kind of have this thing in mind of like, there's a whole system we only know about because of leaks, and yet we still don't have price, date, or anything, and we're 3 or so months away from being able to buy this box. Presumably. At least Xbox, we know November. We assume with PlayStation, probably November.
So yeah, that's what I'm banking on.
Here's a question that I'm curious about, just out of how you feel. Mm-hmm. I remember that during the PS4 and Xbox One launch, there was this thing where not only did price clearly help PlayStation, but also coming out a week ahead gave them that extra boost of more people kind of just banking on the one that came first to be their next gen console for a while.
Yeah.
Do you think that Sony is going to try and undercut? Because I guess I'm looking right now, there's a lot of things where people are saying that Microsoft is likely looking to undercut PlayStation on price.
Which is crazy because it's also, people are also saying the rumor is that it's going to cost $600.
Yeah, right. So regardless, the problem with rumors right now is that literally they change every day and it's kind of annoying. So outside of that, let's just look at it. So if Microsoft literally is trying to undercut Sony on price, which is a sensible effort to try and get more people in their ecosystem so they can make their money off of Game Pass, because that's what it is for them.
Yeah.
So if they're going to take the hit there, do you think Sony would be trying to not announce a date either so that they can undercut it wouldn't be an undercut, but that they can essentially supersede and be the first next gen console out? Because if it's going to come down to a situation of price being potentially less, can Sony make some of that land back up by just being the system that's going to be the follow-up to clearly the winner system right now, PS4, but also getting more people to stick with PlayStation instead of potentially bouncing off the Xbox and being like, I'm going to go ahead and throw my money in that rink and I'll buy a PS5 down the line.
I mean, it's entirely possible.
How important do you think it is, I should say?
The undercutting is for the cost, but I don't think the release date is. I don't think a week is really hurting or helping anybody.
I thought it was weird that I guess Sony and Microsoft have been so aligned that you get to start thinking like, well, these things are going to come at the same date. Is what you have like an innate feeling of, but that's clearly not true.
Or even the same week, and that hasn't been that has been the case in longer than a decade.
Yeah, because realistically, 360 came out way before PS3.
Yeah, and then
Xbox One came out after PS4, but then also Series X came out way after, or not Series X. I'm sorry, One X came out way after PS4 Pro.
Yeah.
So
everything's been shooken up lately.
I think there's a little importance because I could see someone who already has the money and maybe is looking at both of them and has things they like about both of them being like, well, this one comes out first and I really want to get one day one, so I'm going to get the one that comes first.
You know what Sony should do?
What?
They know they can afford it. They just need to launch the PS5 like in 2 weeks, and they just need to make it like a $199. Dude, I would love to see the look on Phil Spencer's face if Sony was like, yeah, it's coming out September like the 12th. I was gonna say September 11th, but I can't do that. September the 12th, and it's gonna be $199.99. What would be like? Dude, it hit 2 million units in the first day.
You just know that Microsoft would be like, well, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, like Phil Spencer would be like, well, I'll sell y'all Games Pass for $1.
See, the thing is right now we know that that's not going to be the case for Xbox, right? You could give that same what if for Xbox if Xbox hadn't said they're coming in November.
Or if you want them to declare bankruptcy.
Well, realistically, Microsoft has more back-end money than Sony does.
They do.
So they could probably float that for longer.
Yeah, the Xbox division could shut down and Microsoft would not be hurt.
But honestly, dude, what we were looking at the other day, that, I think it was either last week or the week before, the breakdown of where they get their money from.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, both companies have just as much motivation to get as many people on their platform and staying on their platform as possible.
Well, to be fair, Sony doesn't exactly have a single external side company like Microsoft does. Microsoft has Windows, and Sony doesn't have that. That's something as that lucrative.
Yeah, PlayStation is their Windows.
Yes,
the closest they have.
Because like they don't have TVs as much as Samsung, LG. They don't have Vio anymore. That's gone. That's not even theirs anymore. They don't have. They have musical peripherals. They have headphones and stuff like that, but that's not as big as the console, or even close to being the size of the console.
Yep.
So it's kind of like Sony has the console, and they don't have a backup where Xbox is Microsoft's backup. Like Windows is first.
Yeah. No, you're right. So you have the ability for Xbox to realistically, the price undercut thing makes sense. Realistically, Microsoft can afford to go, PlayStation's going to be $500, we're going to be $400.
Yeah.
The only thing that gets weird about that is like, in their mind, if they're ready to undercut that much, where are they trying to put the Series S at?
$1. Like, I don't even know at that point. 50 nickels.
My other thing that I'm a little weird on this is which each one's going to do, right? Because PlayStation's clear business model going forward is to have the majority of systems out there so that more people buy games on their system.
I got it. You can only get the Xbox Series S if you buy the Taco Bell dinner boxes.
I was just about to say
you got to win it.
I was just about to say some shit like a Burger King. If you get a Burger King Happy Meal, you get a Series S.
You get the Series S by buying. You don't get it,
and it comes included with a remaster of Sneak King.
It's a It's a 50% chance though, so you may have to buy 2 fries or something. I don't know.
But no, for real, it's interesting seeing what they're going to do because Games Pass is a clearly different business model than just wanting people to buy the game on your system and you get your revenue cut.
Yeah.
And I still am in this back end area of until we'll never see it realistically. The only way we'll know is if they suddenly shut Game Pass down, which I don't see them doing anytime soon. So my question for Games Pass right now is clearly Microsoft's putting a lot of money behind it to try and get more people on it, so it becomes a viable position potentially at some date. But that date could have already hit.
It could,
and I don't know. For me, it's a thing of with as aggressive as they're being as getting people onto it and offering really good day one deals for it and whatnot and putting their own games on it day one, either they're bleeding a lot of money on purpose with the intent of getting enough subscribers so that at one point it hits that mass adoption to where from now on, as long as they don't go under, I don't know what the subscriber count would need to be, but maybe if they don't go under 3 million subscribers, they'll always make enough money to justify the existence. Right now, I think they're at 1 million subs or something like that. And that's more than PS Now at the moment, at least last time that we were able to check. But PS Now is not nearly putting as much money up front to motivate companies to come to them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wonder which one's more sustainable. And that's just a genuine curiosity. I wonder if Sony is making money on PS Now, but they're also looking at ways to grow it without having to go over that amount to where they're spending more than they're making. And if Xbox is continuing to do that, or if they've already hit the point where it's profitable on its own.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Or the negative.
Or if they're on negative still, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't think we'll ever find that out on either one of them.
Because my thought process there is that if the Series X is going to undercut price to get more people on it, then you're losing money there. You're having multiple sources of negative income.
Yeah. In
the hopes of getting positive income eventually.
Which is possible, depending on what the undercut is. If it comes out as $350 or something.
Yeah. Well, going back to your $199 thing,
that's why Nessie wants it. Or a lot, yeah.
Your $199 situation, right, for Sony, is it realistically, depending on where the cost is going to come in on these, right? We assume that Sony's going to either sell for a very minimal loss or right up around what it costs them to make it. So let's say that price is $600. If they say $199, they'd be losing $400 per console.
Yeah.
Right?
2 million consoles go by.
That's not that much money in comparison to, they were losing pretty close to $300 a console on the PS3.
Yeah, but there wasn't 30 million PS3 sales in a week like there will be for that.
Exactly. So when you look at that setup and how much games like Fortnite have shifted it to where the console actually matters more because you're just wanting that digital sale to get more money coming in.
Yeah.
Honestly, man, not that I expect it. I still fully expect, realistically, my price guess for PlayStation 5 is still $500, with the digital version being either $400 and them taking a steeper cut because the cost of the disc drive is not that much, or it's going to be $450.
Yeah, a $50 difference is my minimum. Like, it's like
there's going to be no more than $100 though.
At that point, yeah, it's like if I could get a disc drive just for the 4K Blu-ray player, like for $50, I'm like, that's an argue there. Like, I could use that. But if it's like, here, it's $25 cheaper, I'm like, no, I'm just going to go ahead and get the digital or the disc version because I get a Blu-ray player for $25.
Well, you know, another thing that's going to end up being weird is going back to the topic of game upgrades. Some of the game upgrades look at it like right now. Like one of the things that Josh said is people buying a game for cheaper and then getting more out of it on PS5. So if you buy a physical version of Watch Dogs right now on Amazon, you can get it for $49.99. But the PS5 version is set to be $59.99, normal price. But you can get it for $10 cheaper. But if you buy it $10 cheaper and take advantage of that physically, not digitally, suddenly you've just kind of forced yourself into having to buy a disc drive PS5.
In a sense, yeah. Or You just don't make dumb decisions. Like,
well, I'm not saying that, but some people are going to buy it that way. But I wonder if anybody's going to do that, being like, "Sweet, I can save $10," but their plan this entire time has been to buy a digital PlayStation 5. When does that click?
That $10 saved is a potential 50 lost. So that's still not bad. That's still not bad odds, right?
Well,
there.
definitely if you do it with all the Ubisoft games coming, right? If you do it for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Watch Dogs, and whatever the hell else they have coming.
Well, I mean, if you're a Ubisoft fan like that, you already love throwing money away. So you might as well. I'm just kidding, guys.
Okay, well, what do you think for the community's take question? I think one of the things I wanted to
Do you like Ubisoft games?
One of the things I wanted to talk about realistically, and it's not worth talking a bunch about. It's just something that could affect Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo because they all do it as a platform holder, is the whole iOS and technically Google, but iOS is getting the big thing right now. The Apple lawsuit that Epic has against Apple. And I don't
understand that lawsuit either. To me, it seems like it's Apple. It makes sense. Epic violated.
No, they did on purpose.
But why?
And they had the lawsuit prepared before they put the thing in the update that violated the terms of service. They knew what they were doing. Now it's weird,
but every service in the world has that.
Every service has terms of service that come from
like
a monetary standpoint too, because that's what this is about.
You can't put your own currency on PlayStation.
Well, you can, but you have to give them a kick of it. That's what it is.
I don't think you can you?
Well, what it is that you get V-Bucks, right? V-Bucks is Fortnite's currency.
No. This is a game-specific payment method, not
currency. I know.
Yeah, I said that wrong. There's nothing like that on PlayStation,
yeah.
Xbox, Google, anywhere.
Yeah, you buy it through them.
It's because it's all against their terms of services.
Yeah. So again, they did this on purpose, and a lot of that comes from the fact that the reason that they wanted to do that is the fact that Apple charges a 30% tax on anything sold. So if you paid for something in Fortnite through them, they've lost 30% of it.
Yeah.
Now, if they can get you to do it direct, they don't lose any. But here's the problem with that: if you're going to do that against Apple, and they did it against Google,
yeah,
when are you going to do it on console? When are you going to go to Sony? That's going
to become an issue too, because that's. People may think like, oh, well, Apple's charging that company. Apple's charging that company, and everybody else, Google, Apple, everybody's charging that company, rightfully so.
But here's the weird thing about the monopoly,
and
that's part of what comes in.
They're trying to get out of it.
The lawsuit claims monopoly from Apple.
I don't understand
But there is
how.
one thing of that monopoly that Apple is doing from the monopoly standpoint, and it's actually going against Microsoft, and that's that they're not allowing xCloud to be on it because it's going to go against their iOS. I don't know what it's called, but iOS is going to have their own game streaming thing. I don't know what it's called.
So I guess it's kind of like definitely a competitor. Like it'd be like
essentially
it'd be like having xCloud on PlayStation or something.
Yeah. So right now xCloud is going to be exclusive to Android.
Okay.
But that means that everybody who has an iPhone that Microsoft was originally hoping to be able to utilize as part of their Game Pass xCloud plan
now can't do it.
And that means people like Blake, who really wanted to go back to an iPhone, has to either keep a phone around that's an Android to be able to use that, or just give up the feature by going to an iPhone again.
Like if you want one, like if that's becoming a thing in your life, let me know. I'll send you my Google Pixel 2 XL.
But that's my point, is that it does create weird situations, but this also has a really high chance of being an effect on things. So where I was going there is, where do you stand on the lawsuit for Epic? I don't know if that's a great one though. It's something that's been on my mind this week.
Which one do you like better, Gotham Knights or Suicide Squad?
I still can't believe how similar those two games are.
They're the same game, just with different shades of colors. Like, it's weird.
It's one game doing it as all heroes and one game doing it all as
the same thing, though.
Villains.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a character shooter.
Yeah. Also, they all look like they're just, what do they even call them? Hero shooters or whatever?
Yeah.
Where it's like Rainbow Six and not that they are, but it's just what they look like.
Let's do that because this is an interesting topic already. Because I'm actually interested in both these games, one being more than the other, which is Suicide Squad, which I wouldn't have seen coming.
Yeah.
So which one did you guys like better, the reveal for Suicide Squad or the reveal for Gotham Knights? No, it is Gotham Knights, isn't
Gotham
it?
Knights, yeah.
That doesn't sound right after saying Arkham Knight for so long.
Weird naming choice for that.
It is. It especially since it I don't understand that game.
But I kind of like the play of words too, because it's
I don't, because it's
Knights, because it's multiple of them, but also
but Bruce Wayne is in that game, and it's the same Bruce Wayne from Arkham Knight, but that game isn't in that universe. I don't know. Which one did you like better? And don't forget, if you're enjoying yourself, you can catch us every Monday on YouTube in video format at 12 noon Central Time or 10 a.m. Pacific Time. And if you're in another time zone, you can do the math there. And catch us across all podcast listening services in the world. If you find us on one, or if you don't find us on one and you want us there, let us know. We'll try to get on it. And if you're enjoying our content, be sure to leave us a like or dislike, depending on how you feel. Be truthful with yourself and be constructive with that criticism. And Be sure to join us all over the internet. You could talk to us in YouTube comments if you want to. We got our Discord in the description below. You could follow our Twitter at TriangleSQRD, or you could join our PlayStation podcast or Facebook podcast group, Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. And most importantly, if you really, really love us and you want to share us with your friends, that's good. But also give us money on patreon.com/Nartech.
Like these people have.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week. Shout out to our new patrons, which is still Eric McAllister and then Rude Days 93. But from there, we are also going to go off and give shout out to Josh Jarrell, Matthew Green, my name's Dan, Luke Bartolomeo, Sean Santarud, Funk Turkey, Danny Villalobos, Corey Hickerson, Blake Popst, Kevin Bacon Bits, Joshua Lago, Shadowist, Steven Salazar, The Stonard, Travis Below, Eduardo Palomino, Stefan Swanlin, Constantly Kenny, Solitary Red, Chris Figs, Zachary Sawyer, Landis, Jason Clendenning, Tyler B., Brian, Donovan Williams, William Digital Spooker, Derek Porter, Josh Ayers, Brandon Edwards, Sean One, Neo, Tyler Powers, and El Tabib. Thank you so much. If you want to become a Patreon or a patron, head over to patreon.com/Nartech. Thank you.